for those of us who always feel like we're different, our superpowers might be the things that have been told are wrong. And I think everyone has a superpower. And a lot of us are hiding our superpowers. We're ashamed of them. We just haven't found the right fit, And when you can do that, like the whole world, it's like the Wizard of Oz. The world is all of a sudden in color from black and white.
It opens. That's author Morra Aarons-Mele. I'm Leah Smart, and this is Everyday Better. Stay tuned to hear how embracing what makes us different unleashes our greatest potential. Don't forget to hit that follow button to get new episodes of our show every week. And if you're a regular listener, thank you, and I have a favor to ask. Consider leaving us a review so we can keep bringing you more conversations that you love. If you don't know, here's how to leave a review. On Apple Podcasts, go to the Everyday Better page, scroll down to ratings and reviews, and click the number of stars you want to give us. Then, right below that, click Write a Review and add your note for our team. On Spotify, go to our page, click the 3 dots next to the settings wheel, and select Rate Show. We so appreciate your feedback, and as always, thank you, thank you, thank you. Hey everyone, from LinkedIn News, I'm Leah Smart, and this is Everyday Better, a personal development show where every week I sit down with some of the world's brightest minds and bravest hearts who use science and story to share strategies for how we can flourish individually, in relationship to others, and to the world around us. In corporate America, there seems to be this prototype of what a successful worker looks like. They're extroverted, they're energetic and friendly, and they have an endless amount of confidence. If you don't fit that mold, you could find yourself facing some extra hurdles in a system that really isn't set up for your success. We're made to believe that the problem is in our difference, not in our environment or the system. But what would change if instead of learning to cover up our differences, we learn to actually embrace them? My guest today, Morra Aarons-Mele, has spent much of her life feeling different. An ambitious professional and entrepreneur, Morra built a successful career in high-pressure political and marketing roles. Yet she often found herself blurting out the quote-unquote wrong thing in meetings, second-guessing her communication skills, and struggling to fit the mold of how leaders are supposed to show up. And for years, she chalked it up to introversion, to depression, and to anxiety. But just a few years ago, Morra discovered that she's neurodivergent. That insight reframed everything: her creative, fast-moving brain, her entrepreneurial drive, and the challenges she faced in the traditional workplace. It unlocked not only a deeper self-understanding, but also a more empowered and authentic way of working. Long before this discovery, Morra knew she wanted to make work better for people who felt different. As an executive coach, author, and host of the Anxious Achiever podcast, Morra helps people understand the connection between mental health and success. Her career has spanned launching campaigns for the United Nations, President Obama, and the CDC, and advising organizations like Google and Harvard on how to build workplaces that honor the full spectrum of the human experience. So we sat down to talk about what's changed for her since she's identified as neurodivergent. We explored the hidden ways introversion fuels thoughtful leadership and why conventional workplaces often misunderstand these traits. Morra also offers powerful ways to reframe difference not as a liability, but as a competitive advantage, one that can unlock new potential for all of us. Here's Morra.
So I have 4 cats and a dog.
Oh my God.
And 3 kids.
Oh my God.
And a husband.
You're running a small farm.
Yes. I mean, I used to have 14 chickens and that was really bad, but they're gone now. We talk about the animals all day long. Like they are the stars of our little comedy.
I love that.
Someone
What kind of
barfs
cats?
every day.
Oh God. That's our dog. We have 2 dogs. Yes, same thing.
Barf
it's like
every day.
someone's creating a problem every day, and it's ridiculous. But I probably like you. I don't mind a little bit of the craziness.
My husband and I are funny. We've been together a long time. And we both I think it's because we're both neurodivergent, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
We need a lot of chaos. we invite chaos into our lives. Our friends are always like, what's wrong with you? But it's like how we keep energized and going, if that makes sense.
So like you are, and I obviously want to talk about your interest in neurodivergent leadership, but also neurodivergence in general. You feel like something gets like turned up for you.
Totally.
In a good way.
Variety every day.
Variety every day. So you don't, we talk about anxiety and things like that. I always think of anxiety as like an over control issue. Like I want to know, I want certainty. But like variety and certainty are kind of a little bit at odds. Do you like, how do you deal with that? Or do you feel like that is at odds for you?
I think it is at odds for me.
Yeah.
I really do. I think in a way I set myself up for an anxious life when I don't need to. If you have a brain that is always seeking novelty, you are going to be anxious. So yes, I mean, that's a really astute question. Thank you. Like, yes. And I think that's the challenge. It's an active challenge between your appetite for more and more and more and the knowledge that, is that good for my kids? Is that good for me? Is it good for our marriage? And so for me, meditation actually, and gardening and just trying to be still is a powerful way for me to make the time to reset, having a lot of alone time.
Yeah.
Because I really have to get out of my own way sometimes.
When you can get on the wheel and the wheel just keeps going and going and going. But that's like the nature of like busyness and chaos. And there is something fun and energizing to it. But when it's overdone, obviously it leads to all sorts of challenges and issues, and it's not fun anymore.
It's not fun anymore.
I'm curious first of all, so neurodivergence is a really popular, I feel like it's a buzzword these days. But I don't actually believe that people really know, and I didn't really know what it actually meant. Can you just talk about I know it's kind of an umbrella term, right? But what does it actually mean to be neurodivergent, and how does that show up for people?
So I will start by saying there are a million different answers to this question. And I'm going to give you mine.
Okay. Love that.
So neurodiversity, right, is just the idea that everyone has a different brain. It's like diversity.
Yeah, that makes sense.
No single person is the same. And we come together and we have diverse brains. And we've always known this, right? Being neurodivergent is the idea that your brain is somehow an outlier mind. It's not typical. It's not neurotypical, which means that you think differently, you act differently, your temperament is different. Often because you might have a disability. Some people would argue with me saying it's a disability, and that's a totally fair thing. So you might have a learning difference. You might have ADHD. You might be on the autism spectrum. You might be bipolar. Your brain is wired differently, right? In ways that we're just learning really about. And so you are divergent. You're not typical. And with that comes, I believe, often incredible gifts, but serious challenges, And I focus on people who are in the work world, obviously their disabilities are not getting in the way of them having big careers, big dreams, functioning in mainstream society. But there are ways that we get stuck. And I speak for myself. And so I'm really interested in both how we do less of what gets us stuck, but really, really lean in to the superpowers that our different brains give us.
Okay, so tell me if this is like too big of a question, and I know this will be unique to you, but I'm curious, like, when you say neurotypical, my mind goes to like, well, what is that?
Right.
Like, none of us know what it's like to be inside each other's brains, right? Like, and we'll never know. So I was like, what's it like to be neurotypical? And what's it like to be neurodivergent? Like, what if someone were to like look inside of your mind, what would be different? Like, how do we know?
I mean, the traditional way we've always known is if you have a diagnosis.
Right.
Right? If you have a diagnosis of a neurological condition that makes your brain different. So in a way, being neurodivergent is aligned with having that diagnosis that, yeah, you know what? I am different. This is what happens to me, and I have these challenges. I do these things differently. I would say that being neurotypical, I mean, it's a funny question, isn't it? Like, but being neurotypical means that you probably got through school and you never had any special services, and, you know, you sort of like ran through well, and you didn't have challenges, and you don't have big highs and lows, and you don't have a learning disability. And, you know, you basically function pretty solidly. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't go through the heartbreaks and you don't have moments of anxiety or depression or big feelings, but a neurodivergent brain is the brain that has clinical depression from day one, clinical anxiety, bipolar disorder, autism, where it's really something that we can't snap out of.
How early did you know? And I ask this because I feel like I've seen, maybe especially on social media, and even a friend of mine was recently diagnosed at 36 with ADHD. How early did you know? And what do you make of the fact that it seems like more people are saying, actually, this is something that I'm struggling with, and I just found out as an adult?
I didn't know I was neurodivergent until a couple of years ago. I never identified. So I have known that I was bipolar since I was 19. But I never really thought of myself as bipolar because I was treated for anxiety and depression. And I sort of was just going along, but the meds never worked. And I was struggling. And I also knew things like, God, I really have a really hard time working for other people. And it's like, I can't ever get promoted. And I always blurt out the wrong thing in meetings. And why do I have 6 jobs? Like, why is my life so chaotic when other people function like this? And why do I always sit in meetings and think, God, okay, guys, duh, let's hurry up already. And why can no one understand my memos? Like, all of these things.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And it was like, and I'm very high functioning, and obviously I can mask, I can fit in. And then, you know, my kids have pretty significant diagnoses, and I lived this as a mom for many years. And it wasn't until, honestly, doing my show and doing all my research and interviewing so many people like me that one day I was like, oh my God, this is me.
Wow.
And it was honestly the work of Dr. Michael Freeman at UCSF, who is one of the most prominent brain scientists who studies dopamine-seeking brains and mental health and mental illness and entrepreneurs. And I was like, oh my God.
This is it.
At 46.
Wow.
Like, I'm not just anxious. I'm not just depressed. I'm not just, I mean, I always had problems in school. I always had something. I always knew that I was different and I was special, but I couldn't quite make everything work. And so it just all came together. Yeah, it's been weird. It's been a huge aha. I did feel at some point like I wanted to send an apology note to everyone I've ever worked for. And now I know why I always did this, you know?
So what is that like at 40? I mean, this is what's crazy to me. I'm like, it's so wild to imagine that you have been functioning in the world in the way that you've been doing. I know you said I can mask, but the fact that you basically, like, I mean, I think what bothers me most is like you didn't have the information you needed to understand and process what was really going on for you. It was just kind of an internal experience. And you did that for 46 years.
I mean, and I'm luckier than most. I know you say that you didn't even have the words for your anxiety until you were how old?
Oh, God. I mean, it was recent. It was in the last probably 3 or 4 years that I really was like, oh, that's what this is. And that's what that is. Yeah.
I grew up in a family that was very pro-therapy and, you know, again, got that diagnosis when I was 19 after I had really crashed at college and just like had to come home and was basically non-functional. So I got a diagnosis early. It's just that I didn't have the language. And it's funny, I have studied why people who have different brains need to work differently since I was 26. I knew.
You knew. Yeah.
I knew.
Yeah.
But I didn't actually put 2 and 2 together until 2 years ago.
So you go through this experience of talking to enough people that you go, oh my God, this is me. And then what happens? Do you go to a doctor and say, I think this is what's going on? If you could just confirm.
I have so many doctors. No, because when I started taking meds for bipolar rather than just anxiety and depression, everything changed. And that was only in 2022.
Oh, wow. It's recent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So everything changed because I don't seem so much like someone who has bipolar. But of course, I know now that I am. I mean, the hypomania is why I write books and start businesses and own 140 domain names and have so much energy and have a billion animals and, you know. So it's wonderful. But I've also paid a huge price. You know, my brain is only one piece of my experience in life. I'm very privileged. I'm so lucky. And so my neurodivergence hasn't cost me what neurodivergence costs a lot of people. The statistics are scary. People who have these brain conditions tend to be underemployed. They tend to access and need social services that are increasingly harder to get. And so we have to be realistic. And when I see the sort of ADHD superpowers conversation, I love it because I know it's true. But I also want us to remember the other side of it and take that seriously too. And remember the people who are probably getting left behind in the conversation.
When you think about the workplace, and you mentioned this idea of like thinking back to all the people who you've worked with, who, you know, maybe were like, oh, her memo didn't make sense, or this, you know, why did she blurt this out in the middle of a meeting? I mean, all of these things. Our workplaces are not set up for, right? So they're not optimized, I should say, for people who have differences of most kinds. If you could kind of like paint done, you know, like Brene Brown says, paint done for me. Like, what does that look like? What's different about our environments that allows for the superpowers of people who are neurodivergent, and also for some of the differences that many people who may be neurotypical don't realize?
Yeah. I mean, the truth is what's good for neurodivergent people at work is good for all of us. Flexibility, understanding, the ability to modify your environment.
These seems shockingly simple.
The ability to spend time on tasks that you're good at and not always have to tackle tasks that you're not good at but are trivial. If I could tell you the amount of leaders that I work with who email is their nightmare. Email is their nightmare. I can't keep on top of my email. I'm late in responding to email. And you're like, well, what's your job? Well, my job is to design this program. Well, so what's email's role in your job, right? Well, I mean, it's how we talk, but it's not my core task. I call this being wonderful at your craft, bad at your job. You know? And so, okay, well, maybe we can like give you a solution for email, but really help you lean into what you're amazing at. So I think work would be so much better for all of us if people were more educated and had better understanding, less judgment, hopefully, and then just the ability to treat us all like grown-ups, which is all anyone ever wanted anyway. All the data has shown this for decades. Agency, autonomy, respect often ranks in employee surveys higher than salary.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of wild, right? You know, like you go to school until you're 18. You then start to get a little bit more, you get more and more agencies, you get older, but then you go work at a company that like in many ways, because of the way organizations are set up, they kind of put you back into a box.
A box, 100%. A box. And the one thing I know about people who are neurodivergent, it's like we don't do boxes. It's just not.
When you talk about neurodivergent leadership, I wonder what that looks like.
You know, one of the things that I do is I help people think about their hidden superpowers. And, you know, for those of us who always feel like we're different, our superpowers might be the things that have been told are wrong. And I think everyone has a superpower. And a lot of us are hiding our superpowers. We're ashamed of them. We just haven't found the right fit, you know? And when you can do that, like, the whole world, it's like the Wizard of Oz. The world is all of a sudden in color from black and white.
It opens.
You know, what I see, and certainly this is not my thinking, this thinking has been going on for decades, is that there are sort of archetypes of superpowers for people who have certain neurodivergent conditions. When I interview people with ADHD, and the literature will show this, there's an incredible creativity, right? Like the person in the room who is gonna make something amazing. It might be that person.
Yeah.
They have that novelty-seeking brain. They are literally thinking differently. Their brain literally puts things together differently.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I've interviewed many leaders with autism who have an incredible ability to distill complex systems and make things make sense, who can see patterns, who have an incredible ability to store knowledge. That's an incredible skill, right? Much has been written about the bipolar entrepreneur and the bipolar creative, you know, for many years. And this is why I love Dr. Freeman's work. We have hypomania. We are just different. We have power. And so when we find the right fit, we can make magic. One of my favorite books about ADHD is called You're Not Mad, Lazy, or Stupid. You're not crazy, lazy, or stupid, I think it's called. Yeah, you're not. You have a different brain.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And so, again, to the inequality, we can't ignore it anymore because we need people to do jobs. Why would we leave people with amazing skills just because they need to learn differently and work differently?
Coming up, Morra and I dig into how introversion can actually be a leadership superpower and why a lot of workplaces misunderstand it. We'll be right back after this short break. And we're back with author and speaker Morra Aarons-Mele. You've also talked about introversion, extroversion. Talk to me about that. And I ask in the context of like, you know, I think in the workplace particularly, right, we again tend to praise the people who are extroverted. We tend to praise the people who are most talkative or loudest in a room. I think somehow we convert that to power, confidence, intelligence.
Status.
Yep, status. So they get privilege, but someone who may not be a person who speaks up but has incredible ideas when they do speak up doesn't tend to get that same attention. Talk to me about your experience of introversion and extroversion.
Yeah. I think that introverted leadership is a really fascinating area, and it is the kind of thing that needs much more light because we in America, like you said, we default to extroversion. The data is clear. Extroverts gain more status. They get promoted quicker. They accrue a tremendous amount of value in society.
Yes, social capital.
They
so
do.
much social capital.
Which, of course, is also financial capital. Jan Yachimovitz at Harvard Business School has done a bunch of research on this. So introverts usually mask. And if they want to play in the sandbox, learn how to fake extroversion. Because, well, hey, it's what everyone else is doing. Like, I got dinged in my class participation grade, so I better speak up, right? Not all introverts are quiet, by the way. That's a myth.
I was going to say, yeah, I know the introversion conversation isn't brand new, but we also just really messed up what that means.
We totally messed up what it means. And what's really interesting is, and again, not a brain scientist, but the brain science around this is actually connecting dopamine to extroversion and finding that extroverts are actually more able to quickly access dopamine. So they are literally easier to please. I think of an extrovert as like a puppy who, when it gets pet, is like, oh, you love me. I'm so happy you love me. Let me be loved. Right? It's like, it's real easy.
That's why people love dogs. Cats are a little different. I love cats.
Right. But that, maybe the cat's the introvert where it's like, got to pet me in the right place. Yeah, I'm done with you. Right? Where it's actually harder for us to access the dopamine centers. Now, that is an incredible leadership skill. We actually process more, we think more deeply, and we're not as gullible. We're not just, I'm here. We're actually thinking ahead. We're being strategic. And I think that's incredible. But when you look at who leaders are in this country, I'm here,
Right.
is sort of the American secret for success, which can make a lot of people feel left out. Or they're just constantly performing what Brian Little at Harvard calls acting out of character, which we need to do. But we also then, if we're performing, I'm performing right now.
Yep.
I'm loving
we
being
both
here.
are. Yeah, it's great.
But
we won't do this forever.
I can't do this all day.
No.
I'm acting out of character. And introverts then really, are masking. They're putting out a lot of energy. It's exhausting.
How do I know I'm an introvert, and how do I know I'm an extrovert? So I like this like idea of like the puppy and the cat, although like it could be different, but I grew up with cats and they're absolutely like they would hide and it was like hard to please them, but you wanted to, but you couldn't. And so I always loved
But when
dogs.
they love you, they really love you.
They love you.
I mean, I'm always team cat.
Yeah.
So being an introvert is a character trait, right? It's one of the big sort of personality traits that emerge, and it's actually a Jungian definition. So Carl Jung came up with extroversion, and the way that he frames it, I think is really powerful, is that extroverts process the world through other people and external events. That's how they make meaning.
What does that look like?
So if I'm showing up in a room at a party with people I don't know, and I don't know how to feel, like, is this a cool party? Should I be here? Like, I'm gonna look to other people. I'm gonna look to how others react to me. I'm gonna draw meaning from how other people are assessing the situation or responding to me. Introverts make meaning internally. We check in inwardly. Do I want to be at this party? Is this worth my time? Would I rather be reading a book? That's the gauge that we go to. And so he believed everybody had both traits, although some were more strongly extroverted and some were more strongly introverted. But for him, it was really a way of sort of processing our being in the world, which I think makes a lot of sense because introverts, we have, Scott Barry Kaufman has this wonderful phrase called being a wild introvert, where it is a party in your brain. You may look like someone who is wanting to be by themselves, but that's because your inner life is so rich.
Like, I'm having a great time.
I'm like that. I have like the best conversations with myself. I could do that all day long in my garden.
Yeah.
I'm a wild introvert.
Yeah. I love that.
And so that's incredible too. What an incredible gift. What an incredible leadership gift. And we can connect when we find someone who gets us, right? Oh, it's so powerful. And so being an introvert or an extrovert is a personality trait.
Do you get it from birth? Do we know? We're not sure. Okay.
No one knows, but
yeah,
theoretically.
Yeah, sure.
It's up there with all the other big 5 personality traits.
Can it change over time?
Probably.
Okay, great.
Again, there's no blood test.
Right. I mean, I'd argue for myself that like I've gone back and forth, but when lockdown happened during COVID, it was the first time that I was like, oh, I'm not going to California to be with my family. I'm staying in New York. I live alone. I'm going to read a million books and work out. And like, it ended up being that like I was very much in touch with my inner world, and something shifted for me where I'm like, oh God, I love my alone time. And I hadn't wanted that before in the same way. So I wondered about, is this just something I'm accessing that's really nice, that's valuable, that's recharging, or is there something about me that I've been denying about myself so that I can fit into the worlds I know I need to fit into to be successful, on top of the fact that I'm a Black woman. So I'm also trying to pace myself at the right pace that keeps me in the right social circles and allows me to have social capital.
And probably masking.
Of course, yeah.
What did you decide?
I decided, I don't know if I made a decision. I know now that like for me, being on my own is really valuable. And I would not have said that 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I think part of it's age, right? But part of it is just the things that I've discovered, the person that I've become, the person I am today, the work I do. None of that would have happened if I was continuing to exist in the worlds I had for the first decade of my career.
I mean, when I think about your work, talk about making meaning through learning and exploration. and study.
Mm-hmm.
That's very introverted.
It is.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
And no one is an island. Like, we can lean introverted and still want to share our gifts with the world. I mean, there's a reason every single comedian you will ever interview is a wild introvert. And so I actually think that a lot of people, I mean, I have a bias, but a lot of people who are deep leaders and creators and the people who change things are introverted. And they're less easily swayed by the weather, which is a really amazing quality.
It's a huge trait. Yeah. So difference between introversion and some of the things that people confuse it with, social anxiety, being shy. Talk to me about that.
Or being highly sensitive.
Or highly sensitive. Great. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. I mean, there's overlap, right? I mean, I think for me, the biggest aha is that, again, introversion is considered a personality trait that, has been used in psychology forever. Social anxiety is a learned behavior. Now, is it partly nature? Probably. But I would say probably most people would say you learn social anxiety through experiences, through shame, through all the things. And being shy, I have always understood also as a little bit of an avoidance characteristic, right? Where you can be an introvert and not be shy. Just, I don't want to talk to you. It's not about my self-worth here.
That sounds like my mom. I think it's hilarious. When I found out I was pregnant, I said to my mom, how did you build community? I've really been wanting to build community and have a lot of mom friends. Like, what did you do? She's like, nothing. She's like, I went to pick up your brother and I left. She's like, I didn't want to talk to people. And I was like, this is how I know we're incredibly different. I want to have all these friends. I want to have a hug.
Her.
I want to, it's hysterical.
Oh my God.
But that's her. It has nothing to do with self-worth, nothing like that. It's just, she is satiated. It's enough.
It's the satiety. And again, it's probably to do with dopamine. She doesn't need to access it.
Yeah.
I can totally relate to your mom. And then every once in a while I get really lonely and I get really upset. But mostly, I'm
You're
good.
Fine. What do you talk to me about, in the same way we've talked about neurodivergence, introversion obviously has had much more airtime over the last, decade or so. But I still don't know that I'd say we're at the point we should be at with how we think about introversion versus extroversion in all professions. So what does done look like for that?
I mean, introverts don't need special accommodations. Most introverts who are in a career that works for them have figured it out. What we do need is the ability to take care of ourselves without shame. I was called grandma in college. And it always felt really shaming for me. Because I'd be like, I'm done with this party. I'm going to bed. Grandma. Okay.
Bye.
I know that's a bad thing when you're 21.
Yeah.
And so that's a stupid example. But how many times have you been, oh, hey, we're going out. We're going out to the bar. You want to come? No, I'm good. Oh, come on. Right?
What do you mean you don't want to come?
Right.
Yeah.
What do you mean? You don't want to come to lunch? Fine. And so it's really just respect. Hello. What about we just respect each other?
Right. Feels simple. It's funny listening to you. I'm like, how many times did I go knowing I didn't want to go?
Oh.
A million times.
A million times.
And it wasn't until I probably turned 30. I was like, nope.
I teach a course. One of my most popular courses is on networking like an introvert. Because the whole concept of networking is really anti-intro. It's hard for introverts. And there are other ways to do it. But we, again, as Americans, and mentoring, we are over-invested in these ways to get ahead that favor certain kinds of personalities.
Right. You go out, you get the thing you want. You go to the networking event, you talk to the person you want to talk to. Don't be shy. You have one shot.
You never eat lunch alone.
Yep. I mean, I've definitely been in work environments where bureaucracy and all of the political games are what lift people's boats. So if you're not willing to play that game.
That's right.
Or it doesn't work for you, that's who I am. I'm like, that game doesn't really work for me. I'm also not the person who walks in the room and goes, everybody look at me. I don't hate attention, but I'm not obsessed with it. I'm not I don't necessarily need it.
I'm an introverted ham. I love attention. I love to be on stage. Love it.
I love to be on stage, but it's funny. There's a middle ground for me that I don't love. And I think that's like networking events and things like
small
parties.
Talk.
Yeah. I can't stand it.
I can't do small talk.
Nope. I wish I could. I remember I read Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People a long time ago. And it was part of the reason was I was curious, like, what is it that we have to do to make people like us? And they do say that like having small talk at the beginning of a relationship is actually helpful. I just can't. I'm like, I can't. It's so hard. And I'm like, I guess I'll miss that part with people.
It's, I mean, another big aha moment I had is that because I'm neurodivergent and introverted and anxious. That like when I meet people, I often come on too strong. I say the wrong thing. I get overly intense or intimate too quickly. I really have to work to calibrate that for social norms. And there's a lot of us out there. And luckily, I've been able to find an outlet where it's like I can let my freak flag fly and, cry on LinkedIn and get hundreds of thousands of views. But that's, again, most people don't have that freedom or privilege. But I would love everybody to have a little bit more room in society.
To just show up. And not be like, God, you did that weird thing. That wasn't normal.
Yeah.
What do you, I know we're kind of talking about two different pieces of your work, but what, as you look at the whole picture, what do you want people to really understand and take away from the work that you're doing?
My dream when I started this work at age 26 was to make work better for people who are different. That's literally what I wrote on my graduate school application. I want people to be able to talk about hard things at work in meaningful and connecting ways, not in shaming and constricting ways. And that's my dream.
I've heard you say this, I think something to the effect of like, I've never seen a negative reaction from a leader who chose vulnerability, something in that world of like, and I was like, oh yeah, I mean, of course. And I know that this is like when we talk about having hard conversations or talking about hard things at work, I think there's a selectiveness to how we disclose, of course, and how vulnerable we are. But I still think we're all, on that path of trying to figure out how do we manage vulnerability in a way that allows us to work in a more connected environment than just we are 9 to 5 and this is what we do, And so I think there is so much power in being more vulnerable and figuring out how to be selectively vulnerable, but in sharing more of yourself.
Absolutely. And you know what? Talking about hard things successfully is not oversharing or breaking boundaries.
Right.
In fact, you have to set boundaries. You have to create, the holding environment. You have to do it with skill.
Yeah.
It's about that boundary vulnerability, as Emily Anhalt taught me, which is really the sweet spot, which is a skill. It's a leadership skill.
Yep. And it's not a soft skill. That's a highly important skill.
Highly important skill.
Yeah. Okay, Morra, I'm going to have you complete these 3 statements for me. Better humans are.
Compassionate.
Better work is.
Flexible.
Well, that was fast. And a better world has.
Compassionate humans. Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. This was great. I love getting to have you in person.
Thank you.
Amazing. That was Morra Aarons-Mele, speaker, author, and the host of the Anxious Achiever podcast. If you like this episode, check out our show notes for a link to my conversation with Dr. Barry Kudrowitz on why play and humor belong at work. I think you'll love it. Everyday Better is a production of LinkedIn News. The show is produced by Grace Rubin and Emily Reeves. Asaf Gadron is our sound engineer. Tim Boland mixed our show. We get additional support from Alex Kuznetsova and Ali McPherson. Sarah Storm is our senior producer. Dave Pond is head of production and creative operations. Maya Pope-Chappelle is director of content and audience development. Courtney Koop is head of original programming. Dan Roth is the editor-in-chief and vice president of content development at LinkedIn. And I'm Leah Smart. Thanks for coming with me, and I'll see you next week.